Hello and welcome to Shaman Sister Sessions, episode 94. I'm Michelle Hawk and I'm here with my shaman sister, Katherine Bird. And today we are so excited to launch into 2020 with you. We'll be giving some advice for reflection and forecasting for the year ahead. And so this is a chance for you to drop in with us, hear some of our perspectives on what's been going on and what we're seeing personally, and also what we're projecting and feeling into for the collective consciousness. Kat, how you doing?
Hi, I'm amazing. I'm in my new house, excited to celebrate the new year with a new home and everything that comes along with that. So I'm really excited to be here and dropping in about 2019 and 2020 and what we're going to be up to and what we have all to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
I'm good. And also for people tuning in, we're actually recording this around the solstice, so a little bit in advance of when you'll be watching. But I think I normally don't really get very excited about the new year. Like, it's not that big of a deal to me. It's like, oh, it's Tuesday, whatever. Okay. Or it's Wednesday. And, but I think this year it feels a little bit different. And I know that other people are feeling similarly when I'm talking with other people who also normally don't get super jazzed about the new year. It's there's something that feels a little different as we're shifting into this. And I'm excited to have a look at that and see what are some of the energetic frequencies that we're working with collectively, and what do we have access to within this collective field. So let's see. Let's do some reflecting. And I know I also want to caveat this and say there's so many versions of New Year stuff that people are doing, right? Like there's planning and calendaring and like set your intentions for the new year and do your resolutions and blah, 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 right? Like there's, so many aspects around that. And Kat and I were, and just so you know, watching this, Kat and I were kind of talking about, well, we also know that it's really nice to just have this kind of community feeling. And so this is sort of our invitation to invite you to essentially come sit in Heart Circle with us and talk about the new year. So even though it's me and Katherine in our conversation here, please know that we're including you in that type of conversation now. So thank you for joining us.
That's great, Michelle. I think that, so let's talk a little bit about kind of wrapping up 2019 a little bit, mm-hmm. and like where we've been, what we've been seeing going on, what's happening in the collective field, what's happening for us personally, maybe a little bit, and be able to kind of tune in on what we're letting go of at the end of 2019. What are we moving through here?
Yeah. Oof. Like, where do we start with that? Oh my God. Does anyone, so raise your hand, y'all, if anyone else feels like they've been going through the gauntlet lately. Hands up, right? I know. And yeah, come on, Kat, like hand up. Right? We know you've been in big life shifts and life transition. And I think that's one of the collective frequencies that's been happening in 2019. We can look at the numerology of the year, and we can look at, yes, we're coming to the end of a decade. I'm a little bit less likely to attribute a lot of meaning to that. I know that's a very Gregorian calendar thing that we can look at, of like shifting from one decade to another. But really, one of the biggest shifts that I've been feeling is almost this like non-negotiable, no bullshit, no tolerance for absolutely anything that isn't serving. And I know that was a big thing for this year in 2019. It was sort of a rude awakening in a lot of ways about, we've been kind of able to put up with shit perhaps longer than advisable. And at some point it's just been ripped away, and it's like spirit ripping off the Band-Aid. And that's been my experience of 2019. And, I'm a little bit of a, I have a high pain tolerance. I can put up with that. I'm a slightly bit of a spiritual masochist. So I'm like, all right, okay, let's rip off the Band-Aids and go for it. And also I'm really ready to shift into some slightly different energy. I don't know about all of you. Kat, how's that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for 2019, I spent the entirety of the year until, 2 weeks ago traveling and moving around and being not in one place for very long. And it was I was expending an enormous amount of energy to do that. And yet it felt like it was a necessary piece to really find my own center in the midst of all of the chaos that there is out there, and to become less attached to the things I had been attached to in the past. And I think when you're saying like ripping off the Band-Aid, that there's a lot of that we want to be comfortable. We want to hold on to the things that make us feel comfy and warm and cozy. And that in 2019, it feels like there's been a lot of, well, actually, whatever is making you feel comfy and cozy is also maybe holding you back from something, knowing yourself more and feeling more in your own power and being able to handle yourself more. And so it feels like for the people who've been unwilling to go through major transformations and change this year, that it's been even harder, because it's like if you are holding on to the rock and you're just like with your fingernails, it's like you can only do that for so long before you just have to let go, and you have to surrender and let yourself be guided into the next phase of what's going on. And I think that we are all we're all coming to certain cycles of completion here. And I was even reminded, being on a call with a client around, in 2012, and we all thought the thing, and we all did all the ceremonies, and we did all of the like, okay, we're beckoning in the new age, and we're creating this new possibility, and we're leaving what's behind. But, it takes 7 years for all of the cells of your body to change over, for you to actually process and heal things. It takes 7 years. And so I think that we're coming to a phase around sort of a completion cycle around those things that we were starting up in 2012, when we thought, oh, well, this is we were running around solsticing and things like that, and thinking like it was just this switch was going to be flipped. And I think in some ways there is this switch of, this flip of the switch, but we've been dealing with the repercussions of that flip of the switch and having to go through an enormous amount of self-reflection, transformation, being seen, coming into more integrity and alignment feels like that's been the real name of the game. And anything that's not in integrity and alignment is just going to drag you down and suffocate you. That's what I've been seeing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Give it to us straight, Kat. Yeah. And I love that you're bringing that up, because this is something that we can look at. There's a lot of different reference points that we can look at in our past to kind of have an idea of where are we in this spiral, right? So knowing that, time does not exist in a linear fashion. It actually exists in a spiral, and we're moving in these whole, all these different cycles. I want to give people a couple of different checkpoints to look at, one of which is where were you 7 years ago, and what was your what was your reality in that time, and what are you coming into completion at this point that you set into motion 7 years ago. So that's one. Yes, it takes the 7 years for all the cells in the body to regenerate. We become a different person every 7 years. There's a lot of different touch points. The 7-year itch, right? Around 7 years being a really big cycle. We can also look at, in addition to, of course, looking at, well, what has changed and where are you from 1 year, right? That's a really common one. People tend to look at the 1 year a lot more. To that, I would also add in the 12 years, right? Because one of the things, and this is getting into a little bit into the forecasting, but one of the things that is in a 12-year cycle is the Jupiter cycle. And Jupiter we're going to do like microdosing astrology here, right? But Jupiter is the planet of greatest expansion. So it amplifies and magnifies everything it touches. And Jupiter just recently shifted into Capricorn. And if you don't do Astro Speak, that's totally okay. I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version of this. Capricorn is essentially the nature of our foundation, our lineages, our roots, our ancestry, the bedrock, everything upon which we're building other structures. So one of the big themes that I'm seeing for 2020 and that I'm feeling personally for myself is this non-negotiable get right with your foundation, because it's time to build your castle. It's time to build your mountains. And so then looking 12 years ago at our last Jupiter in Capricorn cycle, what foundations were you working with then? How have they served the last 12 years of building? And is there anything that you want to take away from that to do differently, knowing that we're entering a new cycle of building and a new cycle of creation? And I'm seeing, again, just giving you like, and so that's one kind of touch point in practice. If you want to jot this down, like, your sort of your 3 journal prompts here are, where was I 1 year ago and what's happened within the last year? Where was I 7 years ago and what was set into motion that is now coming into completion and ready to move into a new cycle? And where was I 12 years ago and what has the nature of my foundation been for the last 12 years, and what do I want to build and incorporate into my foundation in this next 12-year cycle?
Yeah, super important. And it's amazing also just to look back on those things, because when you start looking back at 7 years ago or 12 years ago and you're like, oh my God, what the fuck? I was so like clueless, or what was I doing? Or what was I thinking? Or, oh my God, I've been through so much since then. It gives you a sense of how much you can change and how much you can become more aware, and how resilient you actually are. Because when we're in the midst of something, we're just like, I will never be okay again. And then when we can look back and see, wow, I did all of that, and that was very challenging or difficult, or I can't believe I got from here to here at all, ever. I never thought that I would be here where it was then. It can give you a lot of context as to the actual real power that you have, and the resiliency and the ability to change and transform. And, that I think can give us a lot of energy for moving forward when we have that reflective piece, because then we're like, okay, well, I don't know what's coming, but I know that what I've learned hopefully are resiliency practices, ways to shift my consciousness, hopefully some energy practices, hopefully some self-care, hopefully some communication practices, hopefully some forgiveness, like all of these things that we've been training in. Now we get to take that to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Where were you 12 years ago, Kat? What was going on in your life?
I was a super big mess. I think I was a big mess 12 years ago. I mean, I was just really focused on trying to support my system, and I'm trying to remember where exactly I was, but I know that I was really going through a lot, and trying to understand who I was, and my connection to spirit, my connection to just myself. I think I was still in a huge question of like, what the heck am I doing, and why am I here? Why am I here? I think was still such a big question that, yeah, I was just really questioning, and very oftentimes quite confused, and trying to figure out what was next. Yeah.
I'm imagining a
giant
lot of
ravens flying over my house right now.
Ooh, amazing. But a portent. And I'm imagining a lot of our people can relate to that, right? Like you, if you're listening, I'm imagining looking back on this, we're probably going to all have some of those moments of like, oh geez. 12 years ago, I was in university at that point. So like end of 2007, beginning of 2008. I had just gotten back from doing my undergrad research in Costa Rica, working with hummingbirds, hummingbird foraging behavior. And I was initiated as a Reiki master in, I think it was like January of 2008. So it was like right 12 years ago. I'd been studying Reiki and studying energy healing since 2006. And I'd been studying shamanism since 2003, I think. something around that, and I can't really do math right now, but so there had already been some things set in motion. But I remember, getting back in the country, getting back to the US, having total culture shock from being like essentially in the jungle and in the at the biological station, right? And landing back in, oh my God, how do I reconcile these parts of myself? How do I reconcile the part of me that knows that magic is real, and also the part of me that loves science, and the part of me that sees them as complementary intersections of each other, right? And this has informed my journey for the last 12 years, looking at what is that intersection of science and spirituality? What is the intersection of understanding the 3D concrete aspects of life in addition to the energetic mysteries of life? And I definitely feel that echoed in my work with alchemy. This is very much, again, that intersection of science and spirituality. And also in terms of the self-actualization, as I was still in university, but kind of coming to a lot of these questions of who are my people, who's my community, who can actually speak my language, because all the pre-med students that I was hanging out with, they were scoffing at me with the idea that perhaps energy had a role to play in modern medicine. What? Who's laughing now, bitches? Okay. But looking back on that, that was definitely a big initiation cycle in terms of being able to stand in my truth in spite of not really feeling heard or feeling seen. And that's been a big theme over the last 12 years. And so I'm curious, if you're watching this and you want to either leave us a note on the YouTube video or send us a message or something, or somehow comment on the thing. I'm kind of curious what in the last 12 years or 7 years is coming to full cycle for you. So heart circle, please share.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it feels like there is, those seeds that were being planted, definitely for me 12 years ago are like very in this space of ripeness at this point, and coming to kind of a full circle of, a lot of self-realization and so on. And yet still seeing all of the work and the continuation. I know that 12 years ago, I was definitely a bit of a mess in terms of like my emotional body, and my emotional resiliency was not very high, I would say, for sure. And my energetic resiliency was also pretty messed up, and I was really struggling in a lot of ways. And so I feel like at that time I was declaring and creating what would become my practices and my work and my transformation and all of those pieces. And so I know in this last year, just seeing my own personal transformation and my Taoist studies and studying, really deeply into Taoism and the internal alchemy of that system, and just how much that has transformed me just in the last year, I feel, and how it's like it definitely took that long for me to, even though I was studying alchemy and studying meditation and studying all of these things throughout all of these years, it definitely took that long before I was ready to kind of leap in and step into, this level of presence into what my internal work is. And so, yeah, for sure.
And knowing you for many years now and having a front seat to your process, I can say that what I have seen in you over the last year is really just having the opportunity to kind of test yourself on all of that and really prove to yourself that you do have a foundation that can support you even in great periods of trial. So that would be something that I'm offering to our people to tune in with of, and speaking again about kind of another signature of 2019 that I saw and experienced for myself and also saw in many other people, a lot of initiations and activations And so looking at, and initiations and activations in lots of different senses, both in the expansive sense, like for example, I went to Avalon in August, and that was an incredibly activating, expansive, initiatory experience that I was prepared for by virtue of the foundation that I had cultivated, and I had a place for all that energy to go. And it still kicked my ass when I got back stateside and have been in this this sort of energetic ripple effect, a little bit whiplashy for the last few months. Still integrating that, but knowing that because I have the tools and the practices that I do, and because I have cultivated the foundation that I have, I can have this level of very high frequency activation experience. So my suggestion to all of you moving forward, and in looking at 2020, looking at, again, did your foundation support you in this last cycle? What activations and initiations did you receive in 2019 that are still needing to be integrated and woven into your foundation, right? So did you have any big awakening experiences? Did you do any trainings or ceremonies or activation that is going to contribute to your energetic makeup, your blueprint, your all the pieces coming into place? And how can you weave the wisdom of that into the new foundation that you're building in this coming year in order to strengthen and support additional up-leveling and additional integration and processing to be really solid in who you are, in owning and walking your path? Because I know by tuning into this, I know you're a way shower. I know you're here to be part of this evolution of collective consciousness. I see you. I know who you are. And I know also that you have your own personal path and purpose and message, and you're here to serve. So shout out to all the people out there who are the light workers, who are the way showers, who are the people who are anchoring this into the collective consciousness for the benefit of all beings. If we don't get our shit together, that's a problem, right? So this is your wake-up call. If you haven't yet really sat up for that, this is the sign you've been waiting for, to put the pieces in place.
Right.
Meaning, right, like build everything about your foundation. And we can talk about what that means too, like what is actually part of that, instead of just throwing that word around. Get it together, people, because we got a lot of work ahead of us, and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. And just a reference, so in some of this, we have some past episodes that you might want to look at. Cycles of Power. We've done a few episodes of Cycle of Power, probably going back to last year. Those would be great to check out. Also, recently this fall, we did a couple of episodes on initiations and soul activations and taking soul journeys or something like that. And then we also have an episode on integration, which will give you lots of tools if you feel like you've gotten a little burnt out by some of your experiences this year and you are looking for support, more support in being able to integrate those things. All of those episodes would be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
The foundation. Yeah, go ahead. Let's talk about whatever you want.
Well, I mean, this is a heart circle, Kat. This is a heart circle, everybody. So we're moving in and out of time as a linear function here, right? So foundation, what's included in that, right? So there's, we can go through all the levels and look at what do you need to support you on physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic levels, that in order for you to be stable, in order for you to have your platform in place to build your queendom, your kingdom, your empire of love, whatever you want to call that. What are some of the most, Kat, I'd love to know for you, what are some of the most fundamental pieces and valuable things that if you don't have this, that's a problem? What are some of those pieces?
I believe that really you must have some sort of daily practice in some kind of way. And it doesn't have to look like, my practice or Michelle's practice or anybody else's practice in that, for that matter, but it has to look like something that actually works for you. And that might take you a little while of learning and discovering and studying and developing. But that time that's focused on being alone, not just going to a yoga class, but actually being alone, being self-centered in the most positive way possible, and being present with yourself. And then hopefully doing some sort of physical movement practice, something that has to do with breath, with energy, with prayer, with mantra, with meditation, something that's going to center you, ground you, and set you up for being able to be successful in your day-to-day life. If you are jumping out of bed, jumping on your phone, running, going all day long, and then at night you watch some TV and you fall into bed, and then on the weekends, you're going to workshops or you're going to do medicine circle or whatever, like you're going to blow yourself out. So you have to have some sort of practice if you want to sustain spiritual development.
Mm-hmm. And again, like Kat, or not just any practice, but, you know, looking at what, and Kat and I have talked about this in a lot of different facets before, but like, what should your practice actually do for you? And there's been a theme coming up. I've had conversations with a lot of people lately. By the time this episode is over, I'll still be in the Alchemy Project, right? So if you don't know what that is, you can circle on over to the Lightworker portal or check in the backlogs of email. But I put out, usually once a year, I put out a free session project just because I like to be available to my community. And it's a way for people to see what it's like to work with me and see if they want to step into working with me. And some of the conversations I've been having recently with these people are, there's a question that's popping up a lot, and essentially, how do I translate the etheric, energetic aspect of myself, of my practice, of my message into a 3D embodied state, or a different variation of that question? How I know so much and I've practiced so much, so how do I start putting it into action? So I would say, piggybacking on top of what Kat was saying, practices that ideally are working on multiple levels, where you're not just sitting meditating, like, yes, that's useful and helpful, but ideally you're sitting meditating and then you're somehow putting it into the body. You have a movement practice. You have something that translates from the etheric into the 3D, into a place where you can actually put it into action and interface on the earth plane. And I invite you, my extension of that is then what in part of your foundation is taking action upon your spiritual guidance, or tuning in with your guides, or, again, sitting ceremony or doing whatever it is that you're doing, but then putting it into practice beyond your personal practice, like putting it into action in your life. That's one of the things that I see missing in a lot of people. And I've been there. Kat, I think it's fair to say that you've been there. Like, pretty much any healer or any light worker has been there. If you're not, if you say you haven't, you're probably lying. But it's this part of, how do we translate? How do we take this and put it into the earthly realm? And honestly, like, trial and error. Really, I mean, just playing with it and letting it be a thing. But if your practice supports you in making that communication, sort of think of all the different layers involved in that. It's like left and right hemisphere of the brain, and our inner masculine and feminine being in collaborative relationship with each other, and the intuitive self and the earthly self speaking the same language. As many things as you can do to start having that be a really easy connection, it will enhance your abilities of manifestation. It will enhance your ability to reach higher vibrations in your spiritual practice, because your physical body will be more elevated and more prepared as a container. It will help you receive more abundance and more in all ways: financial abundance, emotional abundance, creative abundance, all things. It will help you have more space for that in your container. It will help your physical body be more stable. It will help your home be more stable, your relationships, all things. The more communication you can have between the above and below parts of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the next thing we have to have for our foundation?
Foundation. Well, I would hope that a lot of these would be really obvious, right? So like your nutrition on point.
Right.
Your
drink some water. Go to bed.
Drink some water. Take your minerals. Go to bed early. Take a bath. Like, essentially, like, be good to yourself. People,
right.
Like, please take care of yourself. Go outside. Put your feet on the ground.
Nature. Things you love.
Yeah.
Things you love. Things you love. You must connect regularly with things that you love, things that bring you joy, things that make you feel good, things that make you feel creative, that makes you feel grateful, connecting to your gratitude. These are really important because you're going to get smacked around. We all are. We're going to have stuff that comes up. We're going to have changes that we don't actually want because our human and our ego is really invested in things staying the same, or some sort of story that we have about ourselves remaining true. And we don't like for our world to get turned upside down, but it's going to get turned upside down once or twice. For sure. So the more that you can connect and be in the ability to cultivate the thoughts, the words, the actions, the things you're thinking about yourself that are connected to love, gratitude, creating things that are fun, laughter, joy, all of those things are going to support you. So when the shit hits the fan or something tragic happens or whatever it is, you have that wellspring and those tools and you've already been doing it. It's like it's already become the norm. So you will go to those things when you need them.
Right. And to come alongside that, I would add specifically resilience training. And I think we've talked about this in a few different facets already on this podcast. And y'all know by this point, hopefully, that cold plunging is a favorite practice of mine. But I was talking with Kat actually just very recently about the correlation between physical pain tolerance and emotional pain tolerance, right? And there is a correlation between, I think it's fair to say I have a pretty high pain tolerance, meaning like when I broke my arm as a kid, I was totally saying like, no, I don't have to go to the hospital, even though I couldn't lift my arm above my head. And I was using my other arm to lift it above my head. And, but I was prepared to kind of hunker down and just like breathe through it. Right. And looking at how that has supported me in emotional resilience over the years and continuing to cultivate this really high capacity to be uncomfortable because, and again, this is kind of dipping our toes in the water of the forecasting for 2020 people. I know we're all ready and like, I'm totally ready. I think about as ready as anybody to hear like, okay, we're past the hard part now. It's going to get easier. I don't think that's the case. I hate to break it to you. I really don't think so. And at this rate, it's going to be a long haul. That doesn't mean that we're going to be in this constant state of suffering, right? Like Kat was saying, do the things you love, really sink in those moments of joy, seek out joy, keep creating joy and pleasure and enjoyment and laughter and love and bubbles and puppies and all of these things. Like keep those in your life. Don't think that we're saying, okay, you need to be prepared for the long haul of suffering here. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is at this rate and with these currents of energy that are flowing globally and, in the States, looking at the shit that's happening in our socio-political environment and with the environment, right? The health of the planet, there is a lot of shadow to transmute. And if you're watching this, you've agreed to be part of the solution. I see you. And it doesn't mean that, again, we're going to be in this constant state of suffering, but it does mean that the higher our capacity to be present with the shadow, the less it's going to kick our ass. Mm-hmm. So doing things to increase your capacity to be present with discomfort. So cold plunging or, turning the dial cold at the end of your shower or, being present with physical pain, being present with emotional pain, whatever. And for some reason, I don't really have a lot coming to mind right now about resilience practices, but, or doing holding your yoga pose. I was talking with somebody recently talking about the philosophy of as soon as you feel like you're ready to not be in your yoga pose, that's when the pose begins. And that's when the work begins. So maybe try doing resilience in little ways or try having emotional conversational resilience of how much can you be present At this point, when you're tuning in, you'll be after the holidays, but maybe you will have stuck it through a really hard conversation with a conservative family member, and you will have made it out the other side without getting in a screaming match. Awesome. That's resilience training as well.
Yeah. And that's important because, a lot of people who tune into this, you are guided to support, you're guided to help others, you're guided to do healing work and to be in that stream. And, it really doesn't matter what the heck is going on in your life. There's that, you've got people scheduled and you've got things coming up and you've got pieces here that are asking of you. And we are going to have to put ourselves sometimes to the side to be able to hold up the frequency for someone else or for others in collective. And that requires a lot of not doing that from a martyr, I give everything, I want everybody to be happy, I don't need place, but from a very full, I'm actually working on myself continuously and engaging in new practices, engaging in new ways of working with my consciousness, engaging in new ways of loving myself, to be able to show up in that way. And so that's coming from a different stream of healership and support that we're looking at we are transitioning into, that we're shifting some of these old dynamics of what it means to be a healer or a therapist or somebody who's supporting other people, and coming from that place of like giving everything away and being a martyr and being worn down and that to being someone who's fully resourced, and then coming from that place.
Right. Part of what I see this distinction being, and that is people pleasing versus generosity. Mm-hmm. Right. And what is it? And I love that you brought that in, right? Like it might on the surface look like we're doing a similar thing, but the impetus behind it will be very different, right? From this desire to be loved or desire to be seen, instead shifting into, I love myself, I see myself, and from this place, I may be generous and giving. I know that that's been a big shift for me over the last several years, looking at my personal agreements with service. This is one other piece of foundation that I feel is really important before we wrap up here, looking at integrity. And this is, again, Kat and I keep coming back to this on this podcast, y'all. Like, if you haven't heard enough about integrity at this point, like, we can talk about it all day long. But looking at as a cornerstone of our personal lives, our personal practice of what we're building into the fabric of society, if there is anything in your life, and we have a whole lot of different layers of integrity, right? We have our integrity to ourselves, integrity to spirit, integrity to our purpose, integrity to other people, integrity to the planet, right? If you have not done an integrity audit recently, I highly encourage you to sit down and do it and look at all these different areas of your life, your personal life, your relationships, your home, your finances, your business, your animals, your partners and children, whatever the deal is, right? But look at, am I showing up in integrity? Am I showing up in the highest integrity? Am I showing up in integrity physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Is there anything that I can do or embody that is different in order to help me be in more integrity? Because again, remember what we said about spirit kind of ripping off the Band-Aid and having kind of this no bullshit policy. Like, your foundation upon which you're building your life and your next essentially 12-year cycle, right? If it is not in integrity, it will not last. We are seeing this in society. We are seeing this in people's businesses that are built on bullshit, right? There's so much stuff coming up about, and like, any of you who follow my stuff that I write, you've probably seen me calling major bullshit on some stuff lately, and Kat too, right? But practitioners who are building their practices upon a facade or upon this bullshit veneer, or, again, looking at the political system, if there is not integrity in the foundation, it will not stand. So please take that not as a dire warning and realizing like, I sound a little serious about that. It's because I'm so passionate, people. It's because I care. But looking at what do you need to do to clean up your act a little bit? And we all have things that we can do. Please don't think that I'm exempting myself from that. But your foundation, it's really, really important. And I want that for you. I want you to have what you need so that you can build your castle, you can build your mountain, you can build your temple, and know that it's going to withstand the tremors that will come, because they will come.
All right. So I guess 2020, 2020 is going to be great, you guys. It's going to be a metal rat year once we hit the lunar calendar in February. And the rat's the number one. The rat's the first animal, because the rat is so ingenious and resilient, right? It's probably, if all of the 12 animals in the Chinese zodiac, is probably the most resilient animal. And it is able to find the ways through to the other side and to see things from a different perspective, see things in a way that other animals don't, and is able to really navigate difficult situations. And also it's a metal, so that's very much in alignment with what we're talking about: integrity, honor, devotion, bravery. So we've got this very brave little rat coming. We're moving out of a little bit more of a challenging year into a little bit more of a graceful year, as far as the Chinese zodiac goes. Of the rat is amazing. And the rat is like gathering and collecting and making its little home. And we love the rat. So yay for the rat upcoming in February.
Yay. What are we in right now? We're in a pig year, right? I think.
Yeah.
Wood pig?
Yeah, which is a little more challenging for most people. The pig year is a little bit harder for a lot of people, but the rat's going to be a little bit easier. We're gonna see our way through some of the tough circumstances that there are, and find ways to thrive within whatever's coming our way.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, and we get 2 years with the metal element. So we have the rat, and then whatever animals after that.
I forget which one's after the rat.
Yeah, but we have metal rat and then metal something else. So we get 2 years in the metal element. So that's nice. And then just really quick note on numerology before we close here. I was mentioning, I've been saying lots of things about structure, and that's not only to do with the Capricorn influence. There's a lot of stuff happening in Capricorn throughout the year, but particularly in the beginning part of the year. We're not going to go there, but just know there's a lot of planetary alignments in Capricorn. But also it's a 4 year. So 2020, so 2 + 0 + 2 + 0 is 4. And 4 is the year of structure and stability. Think of like a square, think of the foundation. So using the ingenuity and the integrity and the bravery and the heroic action of the metal rat, the smart, crafty, creative force, in order to build your unshakable foundation upon which you shall build your temple. That's the big signature and themes that we're feeling for 2020. That's definitely what I'm putting some attention towards, looking at, again, kind of wrapping up the cycle of the last 12 years and wrapping up also the cycle of the last 7 years. There's been some different seeds planted. And I definitely realize I've been sounding a little doom and gloom about this. Like, please know, I don't actually feel very doom and gloom. I just feel like really, it's almost as if we're standing at the base of Mount Everest, right? And it's, we made it here. We set up base camp. Like, we've done okay so far. We got all our shit together, and now it's time to climb, people. So that's the feeling that I have about this. It's kind of like, okay, the climb is here. We're ready. Let's grab our friends. Let's have our community. We have all the tools that we need. If we don't have tools we need, it's, too late now, or like make a quick run to get the thing that you need, but it's time to climb. And it is exciting. It's going to be great. It's going to be really wonderful. There's a lot of collective excitement about shifting into this new decade. So we get to enjoy that sort of collective euphoria about that. And yeah, take it with a grain of salt, people, right? Like even me saying about, the earthquake will come and shake your temple, right? Like, please know that I'm sending lots of love for having that be ideally as easy and graceful as possible for all of us. And it's like, prepare for the worst case scenario, hope for the best case scenario. So we're all hoping and putting a lot of energy and love toward the best case scenario, also making sure our temples will stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about 2020, Michelle. What do you have going on?
Oh, I've got I Am Alchemy, which is the third year. That's the big thing. That's what I've been talking about on all our episodes lately. Starting in March will be the third year that I've been teaching I Am Alchemy. I'm so excited, all you people. I'm so jazzed. This is the most fun I've had in my work. It's a way that people get to come into this mystery school and get to build their own community with not only students in their cohort, but also in past cohorts. And there are some changes to the way that I'm teaching the course this year. So if you're curious what those are, you can hop on over to my website, joyofenergy.com, and click on the pink button that says Alchemy Apprenticeship. And the biggest change is now there's two ways to take the course. There's the audit path and the apprentice path. So there's I want to dip my toe in the water and take the online classes path. That's the audit path. And then there's the I want to deep dive, I want it all apprentice path. And people, I'm so jazzed already. The people who are signed up for the course are really wonderful humans who are doing their work and really stellar members of the community. So please know that if that's something that's calling to you, reach out to me. We'll have a conversation and see if it's aligned for you to be a part of that work. That's the biggest thing that I have going on in 2020, plus some other projects that are brewing. So stay tuned about that. But I Am Alchemy. How about you, Kat?
Oh my gosh. Well, first things first is Open Your Channel, which is an online course about channeling, mediumship, being able to stabilize those gifts, and then also have a lot of context and tools to be able to master those. And so that leads into either just the course, so you can do the course and the retreat, or the course and do some sessions with me. The retreat will be in early April, and Michelle's going to be there. And let's see, what else? Yeah, so that's the first thing. And then I will be running 5 Elements for Empaths again this year, my Chinese medicine, Qigong, emotional alchemy course, and the Healer's Process will be in the fall. And then I promise that the Healer's Process book will come out in 2020. It is going to be happening. I'm deep in the edits right now, so I'm excited to get that out the door in the new year.
Amazing. Can't wait to read it. And keep us posted on ways to pre-order that. So people, when Kat says the word, you can pre-order your book, and that's going to make a difference in how that gets, I think are you self-publishing, or is it? Yeah.
I didn't feel like dealing with anything else.
Right. Amazing. But still, pre-orders do make a big difference. So please kind of have that ready. It's going to be really, really amazing. And if you haven't seen excerpts of the book, she's been posting little bits and pieces here and there. So you can go back and check out pieces of it. But yeah, really great work. And if you're interested, obviously, in working with either Kat or myself or both of us, then please do reach out. And all the things that we mentioned, Open Your Channel and Healer's Process and 5 Elements for Empaths and I Am Alchemy, we're taking applications and deposits right now. So you can go ahead and jump on board with that and know that you've got the Shaman Sisters in your back pocket.
Mm-hmm. And I'm super excited to have a house and to be in Santa Fe on beautiful 5 acres at the base of the mountains, and to have this amazing place. So hopefully within the next month or so, I'm going to have it set up so that I can be offering some intensives here to come and spend a day or longer with me and really do some deep work. So I'm excited to finally have a home that's going to support that fully.
And this is the first episode that we've recorded with you in your new house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Congratulations, Kat, on your new home.
Yay.
Send you all a beautiful blessing of amazing prosperity and comfort and health and well-being and all the good stuff, love and joy and peace for your new home. So go ahead and if you'd like to join me, just beam a little love blessing, a home blessing for Kat for her new space. And then I'll do a proper blessing when I come see you in the spring. But yeah, so excited for you. You get to land in a good spot.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. So our next episode, we're going to be talking about some forward planning, actually, a little bit more concrete stuff of, okay, so 2020, what the heck? How do I plan my year? There's a lot of goal setting and planning and stuff out there, but a lot of times it's not actually anchored in anything. So we want to give you some more tools as to how you can go through that process in a way that actually supports you, your practices, your spiritual development and growth, and also what's going to work for you as far as, you know, how you're building out maybe your business, your offerings, your creations, whatever it is that you're here to offer in 2020.
Amazing. So stay tuned and we'll see you next time.